Here's $2, sweetheart, for your trouble. Senator Richard Stark pressed the bills into her hand with the kind of smile that came from 30 years of never being told no. The smile of a man who'd spent 3 decades in Washington learning that power wasn't just about what you could take, but about making people grateful when you took it. I'm sure this means more to you than it does to me. The Kennedy Center Ballroom held 400 people, senators and generals, defense contractors and lobbyists, men and women who moved billions with a phone call and never lost a minute of sleep over the consequences. The chandeliers overhead cost more than most Americans made in a year. The champagne being poured cost more than most Americans made in a month. And every single person in that room was watching. Maya Torres stood perfectly still. 22 years old, 5'6", dressed in an olive shirt and cargo pants that marked her as catering staff. Someone beneath notice. Someone who existed to pour champagne in clear plates and fade into the background the moment she'd served her purpose. The $2 bills were crisp, new, like Stark had gone to the bank specifically to get them, like he'd planned this moment, rehearsed it. "Thank you, sir," Maya said quietly. "I'll treasure them." Her voice was soft, submissive, the voice of a girl who knew her place and was grateful to be reminded of it. She folded the bills once, twice, slipped them into her pocket with hands that didn't shake even slightly. Stark's smile widened. He turned to the circle of power surrounding him. Congressman Bradley Shaw, famous for 3 things: his Armed Services Committee seat, his wandering hands, and the 6 sexual harassment settlements his lawyers had quietly buried. Victoria Marsh, his chief fundraiser, a woman whose Botox budget could feed a neighborhood. "See?" Stark gestured toward Maya like she was a specimen under glass. "That's the difference between people like us and people like her. We understand gratitude." The laughter rippled through the circle. Polite, controlled. The kind of laughter that people made when they knew cameras might be watching, but wanted to show solidarity with power anyway. Maya's hands stayed at her sides. Her breathing stayed steady. Her expression showed absolutely nothing. "Perhaps she's never seen real money before," Shaw said. His voice carried across the marble floor, designed to be overheard, designed to be quotable. More laughter. "Richard," a woman's voice cut through the performance. Margaret Stark, the senator's wife, pushed through the admirers. Her face wasn't smiling. "That's enough." Stark's expression flickered. Just for a second, the kind of micro-expression that most people would miss. Irritation, embarrassment, the particular rage that comes from being corrected in public by someone who's supposed to support you unconditionally. "I'm just being gracious, Margaret." His tone suggested she was the one making a scene, showing appreciation for the help. Margaret looked at Maya, really looked. Her eyes traveled from the cargo pants to the olive shirt, to the way Maya stood with her weight perfectly balanced on both feet. The posture of someone who'd spent years learning to be ready. Always ready. "She's not help, Richard." Margaret's voice was quiet. "She's a person." The distinction seemed to confuse Stark. He blinked twice, like Margaret had suddenly started speaking a language he didn't understand. Then he turned back to Maya. "Do you even know who I am?" "Yes, sir. Senator Richard Stark, chairman of the Intelligence Committee, presidential frontrunner. And do you know what that means? It means you decide how much money goes to the people who protect this country." Stark's smile returned. He liked that answer. It confirmed his worldview, validated his importance. "Important work," he said. "Very important work." "Yes, sir." "Then why were you standing so close to my daughter?" The shift happened in half a heartbeat. The jovial politician vanished. The smile stayed on his face but emptied out completely, like someone had turned off a light behind his eyes. His hands shot out and grabbed Maya's arm, fingers digging into flesh hard enough that she could feel the individual fingertips. Hard enough that bruises would bloom there by morning, purple and yellow and shaped exactly like his grip. "I saw you lurking near her table, watching her. I was refilling water glasses, sir." "Bullshit." Stark's breath smelled like 18-year scotch and self-satisfaction. I know your type. Gold diggers who think they can worm their way into money. Nobodies who think they belong in rooms like this. His fingers tightened. Maya's face showed nothing. But somewhere deep in her mind, in the place where she kept the things that training couldn't touch, she was counting, calculating, measuring the distance between his throat and her free hand. The number of seconds it would take to drop him. The pattern of exits she'd mapped the moment she entered the building. Security. Stark released her with a shove that sent her stumbling backward 3 steps. Get this woman out of my sight. Make sure she never works in this city again. 2 guards materialized from the crowd. Large men with earpieces and thick necks and eyes that had stopped seeing people as human beings years ago. They grabbed Maya's elbows. Don't bother being gentle, Stark called after them. She's not worth the effort. Maya allowed herself to be dragged toward the service exit. Head bowed, shoulders slumped. The perfect picture of a humiliated young woman who just learned the hardest lesson of her life. But as the guards pulled her past the corner table near the kitchen entrance, something happened. Sarah Stark sat alone, 19 years old, wearing a designer dress that cost more than a car, staring at a plate of food she hadn't touched. Her champagne had gone flat. Her eyes were red like she'd been crying for hours, and had only stopped minutes before people might notice. Their eyes met. Sarah's face went white, completely colorless, like someone had drained all the blood from her skin in one instant. Wait, she whispered. Her hand reached out, trembling. I know you. I've seen you before. But the guards were already pushing Maya through the service door. Sarah's voice disappeared under the continuing laughter and the clink of champagne glasses and the self-congratulation of people who'd never struggled for anything in their lives. The night air hit like a slap. Maya stood in the service alley, alone. The sounds of the gala drifted through the walls, music and laughter and the particular noise that powerful people make when they're celebrating their own magnificence. She pulled out her phone, not the cheap prepaid she'd been carrying as part of her cover, a different one, military grade, encrypted, the kind that cost more than Stark's champagne budget and couldn't be tracked by any system that existed outside of 3 government agencies. She dialed a number from memory. Warden, this is Ghost. Cover is burned, but objective achieved. Admiral James Peterson's voice came through crisp and controlled. The voice of a man who'd spent 40 years commanding operations in the darkest corners of the world and had learned that emotion was a luxury you couldn't afford when lives hung on your decisions. Report. Senator Stark is exactly what we suspected. Arrogant, cruel, completely blind to anything he considers beneath him. His security is focused on external threats, foreign operatives, political rivals, protesters. They're not watching the inside. And the daughter? She recognized me. Maya paused, let the weight settle. From Afghanistan, 2 years ago, the extraction. She never saw your face clearly during that operation. No, sir, but something about me registered. A feeling, a memory she can't quite place. Maya's voice shifted, harder now. The submissive catering girl was gone completely. She's scared, Admiral. Not of me, of something inside that building. Someone inside that building. Explain. I've been watching her all night. Every time Victor Crane looks at her, she flinches. Every time he walks past her table, her hand starts shaking. She won't eat. She won't drink. She's been sitting in that corner like a trapped animal, waiting for the cage to close. Crane. Stark's Deputy National Security Advisor. The same Crane who's been selling classified military intelligence to foreign buyers for 6 years. Maya's jaw tightened. The death threats against Sarah Stark aren't coming from outside the senator's circle, Admiral. They're coming from inside it. Silence on the line. The kind of silence that meant Peterson was recalculating everything, running through scenarios, adjusting the mission parameters in real time. That's a serious accusation, Ghost. It's an observation, sir. based on 14 years of reading people in combat zones. Maya looked back toward the building. Sarah Stark is terrified of Victor Crane, and whatever she knows about him, whatever she's seen, it's big enough that he wants her dead. If you're right, she's in immediate danger. I know. Ghost, your cover is blown. Every security guard in that building has your face. If Crane has any connection to the threats, then he needs to think I'm gone, that I've been humiliated into nothing and won't be coming back. Maya allowed herself one grim smile. Senator Stark just did me the biggest favor of his life. He made me invisible. What's your plan? Maya touched the $2 bills in her pocket, felt the crumpled paper against her fingers. I'm going to see Colonel Mitchell. The house in Alexandria looked like it had been there since the Civil War. Red brick, white trim, American flag on the porch. The kind of house that spoke of stability and tradition, and the particular pride that came from serving something larger than yourself. Maya had been here 100 times, for briefings before deployments, for debriefings after missions that would never appear in any official record, for Thanksgiving dinners when her brother was still alive and the world still made some kind of sense. The door opened before she knocked. Colonel James Mitchell stood in the entrance, 68 years old, 6'2", shoulders still broad even though age and illness had started to hollow him out from the inside. He wore jeans and a flannel shirt. Reading glasses hung from a chain around his neck. His hair was white. His face was mapped with lines that came from 40 years of command decisions and the particular weight that comes from sending young people into danger, knowing some of them won't come back. I saw the news feed, he said. His voice was rougher than it used to be. Chemotherapy had done that. Cancer eating through his lungs. Punishment for 40 years of smoking in places where smoking was the least dangerous thing happening. Stark's little performance with the $2. Maya stepped inside. The house smelled like coffee and old books and gun oil. Mitchell's study was to the left. She could see the walls covered with photographs. Vietnam, Desert Storm, Somalia, Afghanistan, 4 decades of American military operations compressed into frames on a wall. How much did the cameras catch? She asked. Enough. Mitchell gestured toward the study. Every major network is running it. Senator humiliates young woman at charity gala. You're trending on social media. Good. Mitchell raised an eyebrow. Good? He just proved he's exactly what we thought he was. Maya pulled out the $2 bills, placed them on Mitchell's desk next to a photograph of her brother. Arrogant, dismissive, the kind of man who thinks his power makes him untouchable. Mitchell picked up the bills, smoothed them carefully. His hands were steady, despite everything the cancer was doing to the rest of him. In '68, he said quietly, a captain threw a canteen at me. We were training recruits for SEAL Team 1. I was 24, he was 42. He said I was too young, too inexperienced, too green to be teaching men how to survive combat. What did you do? I kept the canteen. Mitchell's eyes were distant, looking at something 40 years in the past. Carried it through 3 more tours. Every time I doubted myself, every time someone tried to tell me I didn't belong, I'd touch that canteen and remember. The man who threw it at me washed out of the teams 6 months later. I went on to command some of the most successful operations in SEAL history. He set the bills back on the desk. Men who disrespect you are giving you ammunition, Maya. They're telling you exactly how to defeat them. They're showing you their blind spots. Maya looked at her brother's photograph. Marco Torres in his dress blues, 28 years old. The smile that could light up a room. The eyes that had seen things most people couldn't imagine and had somehow stayed kind anyway. Did Sarah recognize you? Mitchell asked. Yes. Maya's voice was flat. Not from seeing my face, from Afghanistan. Something about me triggered a memory. 2 years. Mitchell shook his head. That girl has been living with that trauma for 2 years. And now we know her father arranged the whole thing. Do we know that? Or do we suspect it? Mitchell opened a drawer, pulled out a folder, 6 inches thick. Documents, photographs, bank statements, communications intercepts. I've been working on this for 2 years, he said. Since the day your brother died. Since the moment I realized that mission didn't smell right. He spread the documents across the desk. Maya leaned forward, started reading. The Afghanistan operation was supposed to be straightforward. American civilian, 17-year-old Sarah Stark, kidnapped by Taliban cell. Intelligence indicated location in Hindu Kush Mountains, 40 kilometers from Pakistani border. Team 6 deployed for extraction. But the intelligence had been too clean, too precise. Coordinates down to the meter, guard patterns down to the minute, weapon placements marked on diagrams that looked like they'd been drawn by someone with architectural training. Marco had noticed. He'd filed a confidential report the day before the mission. Mitchell had it in the folder, Marco's handwriting covering 3 pages of careful analysis. The intel feels manufactured, Marco had written, like someone wanted us at those exact coordinates at that exact time. Request additional verification before green light. The request had been denied. Overridden by someone higher up the chain of command, the mission proceeded. And Marco Torres died 60 seconds before the medevac landed. Who denied the verification request? Maya asked. Her voice was completely controlled, clinical. The voice she used when looking at mission footage of operations that had gone wrong. That's where it gets interesting. Mitchell pulled out another document. The approval came from the Intelligence Committee, specifically from Senator Richard Stark's office. Deputy signature was Victor Crane. So Stark arranged his own daughter's kidnapping. That's what the evidence suggests. Mitchell lit a cigarette despite the oxygen tank in the corner, despite the doctor's orders, despite everything. The warlord's name was Hassan Ahmed, low-level Taliban facilitator who mostly did smuggling work, the kind of man who'd sell his own mother for the right price. And Stark hired him to kidnap Sarah for $2 million in a shipment of weapons. It was supposed to be a 3-day operation. Private contractors hired by Stark would rescue her. He'd get a poll boost going into his first presidential campaign. Grieving father, victim of terrorism, hero. What went wrong? Ahmed got greedy, sold Sarah to a real Taliban cell, Haqqani network. They had no interest in returning her alive. By the time Stark realized what happened, it was too late. His only option was to call in real military. Us. Your team. Mitchell took a long drag. His hands were shaking slightly. Marco suspected the moment he saw the compound. It was too perfect, too prepared, like they'd been waiting. They were waiting, because the intel had been leaked. Maya felt something cold spreading through her chest. Not rage, not yet. Something colder, more controlled. The thing that lived in the space between mission parameters and target execution. Victor Crane. Crane has been selling intelligence for 6 years. Financial transactions, communications, classified documents. He's made approximately $40 million. And his leaks have directly resulted in the deaths of 47 American service members, including Marco, including your brother, including Sergeant Davis Jackson and Corporal James Miller, 3 men who died because a senator wanted better television coverage. Maya was quiet for a long time. She looked at the photographs on the wall. All those operations, all those men, all that sacrifice. What's the play? She finally asked. We can't go through FBI. Crane has sources inside. He had Agent Sarah Chen killed when she started investigating. Made it look like a car accident. I remember. Chen had been a friend. One of the few people in federal law enforcement who understood that sometimes justice required operating in spaces the law couldn't quite reach. We can't wait for a formal investigation. That takes months, years. Maya's voice was harder now. And Sarah Stark doesn't have months. No. Mitchell opened another drawer, pulled out evening clothes, a dress, heels. She doesn't. Which is why you're going back to that gala. My cover is burned. Your cover as catering staff is burned. Mitchell smiled. It was the smile he used to wear before combat operations, the smile that meant he'd found an angle nobody else had seen. But nobody's going to question Colonel James Mitchell bringing a date to a charity function. You want to walk me back in as your companion. I'm a retired SEAL colonel, decorated veteran, major donor to the Kennedy Center. Every security guard in that building knows my face and respects my rank. Mitchell pulled out his dress uniform from the closet, medals from 40 years of service. They see you with me, they see someone who belongs. And when we're inside, we extract Sarah, get her somewhere safe, get her to talk about what she knows, and then we finish what your brother started. Maya looked at the dress, back at Mitchell, back at her brother's photograph. The last time we worked together, Marco died. Mitchell's face showed everything he'd been carrying for 2 years. All the guilt, all the second-guessing, all the nights he'd spent replaying that mission and wondering if he could have made a different call. I know, he said quietly. I've thought about it every day since. Every single day. But I can't bring him back, Maya. All I can do is make sure his death meant something. Make sure the men who caused it answer for it. He held out the dress. Help me finish this. For Marco, for Jackson and Miller, for the 47 others, for every operator who's ever trusted that the intelligence sending them into combat was clean. Maya took the dress. 2 hours later, they walked through the Kennedy Center's main entrance. Maya looked different. The olive shirt and cargo pants were gone. In their place, an evening gown. Navy blue, elegant without being showy. Her dark hair was styled, makeup subtle but transformative. She wore heels that added 3 inches to her height. But the biggest change was her posture. She wasn't trying to be invisible anymore. She stood straight, confident, the way someone stands when they know exactly who they are and don't feel the need to apologize for it. Mitchell, beside her in dress uniform, was a wall of authority. Ribbons and medals covered his chest. Bronze Star, Silver Star, Purple Heart with 3 oak leaf clusters, Navy Cross. The decorations of a man who'd spent 40 years doing things most people couldn't imagine in places most people couldn't pronounce. The security guard at the entrance straightened immediately. Colonel Mitchell. Welcome, sir. His eyes barely touched Maya. She was with Mitchell. That was all the vetting she needed. They walked into the ballroom, 400 people, champagne in conversation. The string quartet playing something classical. Stark was at the center of a group near the far wall, laughing, holding court, the $2 incident already forgotten. But Sarah wasn't at her corner table anymore. There, Mitchell nodded slightly, the ladies' room. They moved through the crowd, not hurrying, not drawing attention, just 2 people at a charity gala making their way across a ballroom. Sarah Stark stood at the sink, hands gripping the marble counter like it was the only thing keeping her upright. Her eyes were red. Mascara had run and been hastily wiped away. She was shaking. Maya stepped inside, locked the door. Sarah spun around, her mouth open to scream. Sarah, listen to me. Maya's voice was calm, controlled, the voice she used to talk down panicked civilians in combat zones. My name is Maya Torres. 2 years ago in Afghanistan, I carried you out of a Taliban compound. Your father's advisor, Victor Crane, is planning to kill you tonight, and if you don't come with us right now, you won't live to see morning. Sarah stared, breathing fast. On the edge of hyperventilating, Mitchell appeared in the doorway. His presence filled the space, the authority of 40 years of command. Miss Stark, he said gently, I'm Colonel James Mitchell. I was the commanding officer for the team that rescued you in Afghanistan. Everything Maya just told you is true, and we're running out of time. How do I know you're not? Because if we wanted to hurt you, we wouldn't be having this conversation. Mitchell's voice was firm but kind. We'd have already done it. The men who want you dead are professionals. They don't negotiate, they don't explain, they act. Sarah's hands were still shaking, but something in Mitchell's voice, something in the way he stood, seemed to reach through her panic. "What do I do?" she whispered. "You walk out of this bathroom with us. You stay between Maya and me. We go to my car, and then we get you somewhere safe where you can tell us everything you know about Victor Crane. My father is either part of this or willfully blind to it. Either way, he can't protect you. Not from this." Sarah looked at Maya, really looked, and something clicked. Recognition deeper than memory. The knowledge that this woman had saved her life once before. "Okay," she said. "Okay." They walked out of the bathroom, Mitchell on one side, Maya on the other, Sarah between them. Three people making their way through a crowded ballroom. Nobody stopped them. Nobody even looked twice. Because who would question Colonel James Mitchell? They were 20 feet from the exit when Victor Crane stepped into their path. "Colonel Mitchell?" Crane's voice was smooth, professional. The voice of a man who'd spent decades in Washington, learning to sound reasonable even when he was lying. "Good to see you, sir. I didn't know you'd be attending tonight." Last-minute decision. Mitchell's face showed nothing. Wanted to support the Kennedy Center's excellent work. Crane's eyes moved to Sarah, to Maya, back to Sarah. "Miss Stark, your father was looking for you. He wants you in the family photo." "I'm not feeling well," Sarah said. Her voice was steady, stronger than Maya expected. The colonel and his companion were kind enough to offer me a ride home. Crane's smile didn't change, but something behind his eyes did. A calculation, an assessment. "I'm sure your father would prefer." "Her father can take one photo without her." Mitchell's voice carried the weight of 40 years of command. "The girl is ill. She's leaving. End of discussion." For 3 seconds, nobody moved. Then Crane stepped aside. "Of course, Colonel. I hope you feel better, Miss Stark." They walked past him, through the exit, into the cool night air. "Don't look back," Mitchell said quietly. "Don't run. Just walk to the car like nothing's wrong." They reached Mitchell's vehicle, black sedan, government issue, the kind of car that screamed federal agent or military officer. Maya opened the back door. Sarah climbed in. Mitchell started the engine. And as they pulled away from the Kennedy Center, Maya looked back one time. Victor Crane stood in the entrance, phone pressed to his ear, watching them disappear into DC traffic. "We have a problem," Maya said. "I know." Mitchell's jaw was tight. "He recognized you. Maybe not from tonight, but from somewhere. What do we do?" "We get Sarah somewhere safe. We get her to talk. And then we move fast. Because Crane is going to act. And when he does, he won't give us a second chance." The safe house was in Arlington. Basement level. Reinforced walls. Communication equipment. The kind of place Mitchell had maintained for 30 years as a backup for operations that went sideways. Sarah sat on a couch, hands wrapped around a cup of coffee she wasn't drinking. "Tell us everything," Mitchell said, "from the beginning." Sarah looked at both of them. Then she started talking. "I found files on Crane's computer 6 months ago. I was looking for something else, a speech my father needed. Crane's office, late at night, his computer was unlocked." "What did you find?" "Everything. Financial records, communications with foreign buyers, classified intelligence being sold, weapons shipments, names of soldiers killed because of information Crane provided." "Did you recognize any names?" Sarah's voice broke. "Lieutenant Marco Torres, Sergeant Davis Jackson, Corporal James Miller. They died in Afghanistan, in the operation that saved my life." Maya closed her eyes, forced herself to breathe, to stay professional, to not let the rage consume everything. "What did you do?" Mitchell asked. "I contacted the FBI, Agent Sarah Chen. I thought I could expose Crane without implicating my father. Just show her the intelligence leaks, the arms deals." "What happened?" "Agent Chen died 24 hours later. Car accident on Route 50. Except it wasn't an accident. The brake lines had been cut." Sarah was crying now. "Then I got a package, photos of my mother, inside our house, inside her bedroom, inside her bathroom. I understood. Stay silent or watch my mother die. So you stayed silent. For 6 months. I went to galas, smiled for cameras, played the perfect senator's daughter, while my father's advisor sold secrets that got American soldiers killed. And I knew. I knew everything, and I said nothing. You were protecting your mother, Maya said quietly. That's not cowardice, that's survival. Sarah looked at her. Is that what you tell yourself? When you think about the people you couldn't save. Every single day. Mitchell stood up, pulled out a bottle of bourbon, poured 3 glasses, handed them out. Here's what's going to happen, he said. Sarah, you're going to stay here. This location is secure. Nobody knows about it except Maya, myself, and Admiral Peterson. You don't leave. You don't call anyone. You don't contact your parents. For how long? Until we finish this. Until we get enough evidence to bring down not just Crane, but everyone he's working with. Until we make sure your testimony can't be buried or dismissed. And how long will that take? Mitchell looked at Maya, back at Sarah. 2 weeks. Maybe less if we move fast. But we need you safe. We need you alive. And most importantly, we need you ready to testify when the time comes. Against my father? Mitchell's face softened, just slightly. That's up to you. But the evidence suggests your father either arranged your kidnapping or was complicit in covering it up afterward. Either way, he's part of this. And if you want justice for the men who died saving your life, that means taking down everyone responsible. Sarah was quiet for a long time. Then she reached into her purse, pulled out a USB drive. This has everything. Every file I copied from Crane's computer. Financial records, communications, names, bank accounts, weapons manifests, recordings of phone calls. She held it out. 6 years of evidence. Maya took the drive, felt the weight of it, this small piece of plastic that contained the information to destroy a senator's career, to expose a conspiracy that reached the highest levels of American government, to prove that her brother's death had been caused by corruption and greed. Thank you, Maya said. Don't thank me. Sarah's voice was hollow. Just make sure it means something. Make sure my silence, my cowardice, my 6 months of knowing and doing nothing, make sure it at least leads to them answering for what they've done. It will. The next morning, Mitchell's basement looked like something from the Cold War. Maps covered every wall, photographs pinned with red thread connecting faces and locations. Documents stacked in careful piles organized by date and significance. A corkboard held surveillance photos of Victor Crane entering and leaving buildings across Washington, D.C. This is how we did intelligence work before computers, Mitchell said. He stood in front of the maps, coffee in one hand, cigarette in the other, looking like a general planning an invasion. Paper doesn't leave digital footprints, can't be hacked, can't be traced. When I was running operations in East Berlin, this is how we tracked KGB cells. Maya studied the board. The threads connected Crane to dozens of locations. Defense contractors, foreign embassies, private airfields, offshore banking centers. How long have you been building this? 2 years, since the day your brother died, since the moment I realized the Afghanistan operation didn't smell right. Mitchell tapped a photograph of Crane. I started with him, followed his movements, tracked his contacts, built the network piece by piece. Alone? Mostly. Called in a few favors from old contacts, CIA officers I served with, analysts who owed me, people who remember what honor means. Mitchell turned to face her, but I couldn't move on it, not without proof, not without something that would stand up in court. Now we have proof. Maya held up the USB drive Sarah had given them. 6 years of evidence. Now we have proof. Mitchell plugged the drive into a laptop, the only piece of modern technology in the room. Let's see what we're working with. The files opened, hundreds of documents, financial transactions showing millions of dollars moving through offshore accounts in the Cayman Islands, Switzerland, Singapore. Cryptocurrency transfers designed to be untraceable but meticulously documented by someone who understood that insurance mattered more than secrecy. Communications with foreign buyers, Chinese intelligence officers, Russian arms dealers, Iranian Revolutionary Guard contacts, North Korean operatives, every enemy and competitor America had accumulated over 70 years of global power projection. Classified intelligence reports that Crane had access through his position, troop movements in Syria, agent identities in Moscow, weapons development programs, signals intelligence capabilities, the kind of information that nations spent billions to acquire and killed to protect. Weapons manifests, shipments of American military hardware to buyers who should never have access. Advanced targeting systems, encrypted communication devices, night vision equipment, body armor rated to stop rifle rounds, and at the bottom of the file structure, a folder labeled Afghanistan. Mitchell opened it. Inside were audio recordings, video files, documents, the complete record of how Senator Richard Stark had arranged his daughter's kidnapping. "Play the first audio file," Maya said. Mitchell clicked. A voice filled the room. Stark's voice, younger than it sounded now, recorded 2 years ago. "The arrangement is simple, Hassan. You take my daughter, hold her for 3 days. My people will pay the ransom publicly. Then your men will release her to contractors I've hired. It will look like a heroic rescue. Everyone wins." Another voice responded, accented, Afghan. "And the payment? $2 million. Half now, half when she's released. Plus a shipment of weapons, small arms. Nothing that can be traced back to me." "How do I know you won't double-cross me?" "Because I need this to work more than you do. My approval ratings are down. I'm facing a primary challenge. I need a boost. A personal tragedy that ends with my daughter safe. It's worth more to me than the money. And if something goes wrong, nothing will go wrong. You hold her for exactly 3 days. My contractors show up, you hand her over. Everyone walks away richer." The recording ended. Mitchell's face was granite. He arranged his own daughter's kidnapping for poll numbers. "Keep listening," Maya said. Mitchell played the next file. Different voices now. Hassan Ahmed and someone else, speaking in Pashto. Mitchell's expression said he understood every word even before the translation software provided subtitles. "The American is a fool. We take his money, take his weapons, but we don't give back the girl. What do we do with her? Sell her to Haqqani Network. They'll pay triple what the American offered. And they have connections we need. The American will send people looking for her. Let him. By the time he realizes we've double-crossed him, she'll be in Pakistan, untraceable, and we'll be rich." Mitchell stopped the playback, closed his eyes. When he opened them again, they held 40 years of controlled rage. Stark made a deal with a warlord. The warlord betrayed him. Sarah ended up with real Taliban. Stark had to call in real military because his private contractors couldn't handle a legitimate rescue operation. And your brother died because a senator wanted better television coverage. Maya's hands were steady. Her voice was steady. Everything about her was steady except for the thing burning in her chest that had no name in any language she knew. "There's more," she said. "Play the last file." Mitchell clicked. Another voice, American, professional, calm. "The operation is compromised. The warlord sold the girl to Haqqani. Real Taliban, real danger. If we don't extract her, she dies. And if she dies, this blows back on everyone involved." Stark's voice panicked now. "What do I do?" "Call it in. Official channels. Make it look like standard intelligence. Kidnapped American civilian. Request military extraction." The voice paused. "And pray the team is good enough to get her out alive." "What about the paper trail? The money? The weapons?" "Buried. Offshore accounts are untraceable. Weapons shipment went through enough intermediaries that nobody can connect it to you. As long as the girl survives, As long as she doesn't know the truth, you're clean. And if the extraction fails, then you're a grieving father, victim of terrorism. That works politically too. Maybe even better. Dead daughter plays well with voters. They'll rally around you. Jesus Christ. Welcome to Washington, Richard. Sometimes the worst outcomes serve the best interests. The recording ended. Mitchell sat down. For the first time since Maya had known him, he looked old. 70 years old. Sick. Dying. That voice, he said. The advisor. That's Victor Crane. So Crane knew from the beginning. He helped start Planet, helped cover it up. And when it went wrong, he spun it to political advantage. And 3 men died. 47 men died. Over 6 years. Maya held up the USB drive. This proves all of it. Every sale, every leak, every soldier killed because Crane provided intelligence to America's enemies. Mitchell stood up, pulled out a bottle of bourbon, even though it was 9 in the morning, poured 2 glasses. Here's what happens next. We take this evidence to Nikolai Volkov. We show him that Crane's operation is already compromised. We offer him immunity, new identity, freedom. In exchange for testimony that connects every name in Crane's network, we build a case so airtight that no lawyer, no politician, no amount of money can make it go away. And then we burn down everyone responsible. Crane, Stark, every buyer, every supplier, every corrupt official who profited from American blood. Mitchell raised his glass. For Marco, for Jackson and Miller, for the 47 others whose families deserve to know the truth. They drank. Maya, Mitchell said quietly, there's something else you need to know. What? I'm dying. Stage 4 lung cancer. 6 months, maybe less. Mitchell's voice was matter-of-fact. 40 years of smoking in places where smoking was the least dangerous thing happening. The doctors say I should be in hospice, getting my affairs in order. Instead, you're running an unauthorized investigation into a sitting senator. Instead, I'm finishing what I started, making sure the last mission of my career actually means something. Mitchell met her eyes. This is it for me, Maya. My last operation. And I need you to understand that if something happens, if I don't make it to the end, you have to finish it. You have to see this through. Colonel, I don't. Mitchell's voice was firm but not unkind. Don't tell me I need to rest or get treatment or think about my family. I've made my peace. I've said my goodbyes. The only thing left that matters is this. Making sure your brother's death wasn't for nothing. Making sure these men answer for what they've done. You should have told me sooner. Would it have changed anything? Maya thought about that. No, she said finally. No, it wouldn't have. Then it doesn't matter. Mitchell crushed out his cigarette. We have work to do. Volkov runs his operation out of a shipping warehouse in Norfolk. I've been surveilling it for 3 months. 12 guards, rotating shifts, sophisticated security. The man learned from KGB. He's paranoid. Careful. How do we approach him? We don't. Not yet. Mitchell spread blueprints across the table. First, we gather intelligence. Watch the patterns. Identify weaknesses. Plan 3 different approaches and 2 backup escape routes. This is special operations, Maya. We do it right or we don't do it at all. How long? 2 weeks of surveillance. Then we make contact. The next 2 weeks were a masterclass in Cold War tradecraft. Mitchell taught Maya surveillance techniques that predated satellite imagery and electronic monitoring. How to watch a location without being seen. How to track a person through a city without them knowing. How to recognize patterns in human behavior that revealed routine and vulnerability. They drove to Norfolk every other day, parked in different locations, used different vehicles, changed their appearance. Mitchell in his 70s, dying of cancer, moving through the city like a ghost, teaching Maya things that weren't in any SEAL training manual. See that guard? Mitchell pointed to a man standing outside Volkov's warehouse. 3rd shift, arrives at 0200, leaves at 1000. always stops at the coffee shop on Granby Street, always orders the same thing. Large black coffee, everything bagel with cream cheese. Sits at the same table. Reads the paper for exactly 20 minutes. That's his weakness? That's his routine. And routine is weakness. Routine means predictability. Predictability means vulnerability. Mitchell lowered the binoculars. When we move, that guard will be at his coffee shop. We'll have a 20-minute window. They photographed every entrance and exit, counted the number of trucks that came and went, documented delivery schedules, identified which containers held weapons and which held legitimate cargo. Mitchell's contacts provided additional intelligence. Former CIA officers who still had access to satellite imagery, NSA analysts who could pull communication intercepts without leaving traces, JAG lawyers who understood how to build cases that would survive scrutiny. 1 week into surveillance, they identified Volkov's pattern. Every Thursday at 8 p.m., he left the warehouse alone, drove to a restaurant in downtown Norfolk, a Russian place called Petrograd, ate dinner by himself, always the same table, always facing the door, always with his back to the wall. That's when we approach him, Mitchell said. Public location, witnesses everywhere. He can't kill us without drawing attention. And he's enough of a professional to listen before he acts. You're sure he'll listen? I'm sure he'll hear us out. After that, it depends on how good our offer is. On the 8th day, Mitchell took Maya to a shooting range, private facility, the kind that catered to law enforcement and military, the kind where nobody asked questions about fully automatic weapons or how much ammunition you went through. Your brother could hit a target at 1,800 meters, Mitchell said. He handed Maya a Barrett M82, 50 caliber, the kind of rifle that could punch through engine blocks. But he was better at 800. Know why? More control at mid-range. No, because he knew his limits. Mitchell loaded the magazine. Skill isn't about maximum capability. It's about consistent execution under pressure. Marco could make an 1,800-meter shot, but he could make an 800-meter shot every single time, in any weather, under any conditions. That's what made him exceptional. Maya settled behind the rifle, felt the weight of it, the cold steel against her cheek. What's the target? Your anger. Mitchell's voice was quiet. You're carrying 2 years of rage. That's good. Rage gives you strength. But if you let it control you, it'll get you killed. You need to learn to use it, to channel it, to make it serve the mission instead of compromising it. How? By remembering that Marco died doing his duty. By understanding that revenge isn't the goal. Justice is the goal. Revenge is emotional, personal, selfish. Justice is cold, methodical, serves something larger than yourself. Maya fired. The rifle kicked. The target 800 meters downrange showed a hole dead center. Again, Mitchell said. She fired. Another hole, same location. Again, 20 rounds, 20 holes. A grouping tight enough to cover with a playing card. That's how you honor your brother, Mitchell said. Not by rushing into situations you can't control. By being so precise, so disciplined, so professional that when the moment comes, you don't miss. On the 10th day, Sarah called the safe house phone. Her voice was shaky. They found Agent Chen's sister, Elena Chen. She was leaving work yesterday. Car ran her off the road. Police are calling it an accident, but I know better. Crane is cleaning up loose ends, Mitchell said. He was on the line with Maya. Anyone who might have known what Chen was investigating. My mother. Sarah's voice was terrified. If they're killing witnesses, if they're eliminating anyone who might know something, your mother is being watched. We have people on her. Mitchell glanced at Maya. People I trust. Former SEALs, Marines, operators who understand the mission. She's protected. For how long? As long as it takes. Mitchell touched the photographs. Because if I die without finishing this, without making sure these men answer for what they've done, then everything I've built my life around means nothing. The honor, the duty, the sacrifice, all of it becomes hollow if I don't see this through. You could have both. You could let me handle this and spend your last months with family. Number Mitchell's voice was firm. I can't. Marco was under my command. I gave the order that sent him into that trap. His death is on me. And the only way I can make peace with that is by finishing what he started. By making sure the men responsible face justice. He closed the folder. When this is over, I'll call her. I'll tell her I'm sorry. I'll spend whatever time I have left being a grandfather. But first, I need to be a commanding officer one last time. I need to finish my last mission. The 13th day, they identified the weakness in Volkov's security. North side maintenance hatch, Mitchell said. He pointed to the blueprints. Rusted, neglected. Most people wouldn't even notice it. But I've been watching. None of the guards check it. The cameras don't cover the angle. And it's just barely large enough for someone your size to squeeze through. You want me to infiltrate the warehouse? Not yet. First, we make contact the civilized way. We approach Volkov at his restaurant. We make our offer. We give him a chance to cooperate. Mitchell looked up from the blueprints. But if that doesn't work, if he refuses, or if things go sideways, you need an alternative entry point. A way to get in that his security doesn't know about. They spent 2 days practicing. Mitchell set up a mock infiltration course, made Maya crawl through spaces that seemed impossibly small, tested her ability to move silently through confined areas. In Berlin, I had to infiltrate a KGB safe house through a ventilation shaft, Mitchell said, 18 inches wide, 30 feet long, in the dark, with guards 10 feet away on the other side of the wall. He watched Maya negotiate a similar obstacle. The key isn't strength, it's patience, control, breathing. You panic, you make noise. You make noise, you die. On the 14th day, the day before they planned to approach Volkov, Mitchell collapsed. They were in the study, going over final plans. Mitchell stood up to point at the map and his legs simply gave out. He went down hard, hit the floor with a sound that made Maya's blood freeze. Colonel. She was beside him in a second, checking vitals. His pulse was thready, his breathing shallow. His skin was the color of old paper. I'm calling an ambulance. No. Mitchell's hand shot out, gripped her wrist with surprising strength. No hospitals, no doctors, we're too close. You're dying. I've been dying for 6 months. Mitchell forced himself to sit up. His face was covered in sweat. This doesn't change anything. It changes everything. You can barely stand. I don't need to stand. Mitchell pulled himself into a chair. I need to make a phone call. Need to set up the meeting with Volkov. Need to be your overwatch when you go in. I can do all that sitting down. And if you have another episode while I'm inside that warehouse, then you'll handle it. Because that's what operators do. Mitchell's eyes were fierce. We don't quit because things get hard. We don't walk away because the mission becomes dangerous. We finish what we start. Maya wanted to argue, wanted to drive him to the hospital right now, wanted to call his daughter and tell her to come home immediately. But she looked at his face and understood. This wasn't about stubbornness. This wasn't about pride. This was about a man who'd spent 40 years in service, finally having the chance to make one last thing right. Okay, she said. We move tomorrow night as planned. Mitchell nodded, pulled himself up straighter. Good. Now help me to the computer. I need to send a message to an old friend. Tell him we need to talk. Tell him it's about Berlin. 1987. He'll understand. The message was simple. Encrypted through channels that predated modern internet security, routed through servers in countries that didn't cooperate with American intelligence agencies. Nikolai, we need to talk. You owe me one. From the old days, Berlin. The thing with the wall. Thursday night, 8 p.m., Petrograd restaurant. Come alone. If you don't show, I'll assume you've forgotten what honor means. If you bring security, I'll assume you've forgotten who I am. Neither assumption will serve you well. Respectfully, Colonel James Mitchell, U.S. Navy, retired. The response came 6 hours later. Colonel, I remember Berlin. I remember the wall. I remember thinking you were the most dangerous man I'd ever met because you tried to kill me but did it with such professional courtesy. I will be at Petrograd, 8 p.m., alone. But understand, if this is a trap, if you've lost your honor in your retirement, I will be very disappointed before I kill you. Respectfully, Nikolai Volkov, KGB, retired. Mitchell smiled when he read it. That's the thing about the Cold War. We spent 40 years trying to kill each other, but we all understood the rules. We all knew how the game was played. And now you're going to use those rules to flip him. Now I'm going to offer him something he values more than money. Freedom. A chance to disappear with his wealth intact. A quiet retirement somewhere warm where nobody will ever find him. Mitchell closed the laptop. Men like Volkov don't fear death. They've made peace with it decades ago. But they fear irrelevance. They fear dying in prison. They fear their legacy being nothing but a mugshot and a case number. You think he'll take the deal. I think he'll listen. And once he listens, once he sees what we have, once he understands that Crane's operation is already compromised, he'll make the smart choice. Because Nikolai Volkov has survived 50 years in the intelligence business by always making the smart choice. Thursday evening, 7:30 p.m. Mitchell and Maya sat in a car 3 blocks from Petrograd restaurant. Mitchell wore a suit, gray, conservative, the uniform of a man who'd spent 40 years in command and didn't need flash to prove his authority. Maya wore dark clothing, tactical pants, a jacket that concealed her weapon. If this meeting went wrong, if Volkov decided to make a move, she needed to be ready to protect Mitchell and herself and complete the mission even if everything fell apart. "Remember the plan," Mitchell said. His voice was steady despite the pain medication he'd taken an hour ago. Despite the way his hands shook slightly, we walk in, we sit down, we present the offer. We don't threaten, we don't posture. We treat him like the professional he is. And if he refuses, then we leave. Politely, professionally, and we execute the alternative plan. You infiltrate his warehouse. You gather additional evidence. We build the case without his testimony. Mitchell met her eyes. But I don't think he'll refuse. I think he'll listen. And once he listens, once he understands the situation, he'll make the right choice. You're betting our lives on that. I'm betting on 50 years of understanding how men like Volkov think. They're survivors. They don't have ideology. They don't have loyalty. They have self-interest. And right now, self-interest says, cooperate with us. They walked into the restaurant at 7:55. Petrograd was exactly what Maya expected. Dark wood, red velvet, photographs of old Moscow on the walls. The smell of borscht and vodka and decades of cigarette smoke that no amount of ventilation could completely eliminate. Nikolai Volkov sat at the back table, facing the door, back to the wall, exactly as Mitchell had described. He was 67 years old but looked older. Gray hair, heavy lines in his face, the kind of eyes that had seen too much and stopped being surprised by human capacity for cruelty decades ago. He wore a suit, dark, European cut, expensive without being flashy. Colonel Mitchell. His voice carried a heavy German accent, Russian underneath but shaped by years of operating in Berlin. You look like death. I'm dying. Mitchell sat down across from him. Stage 4 lung cancer. 6 months if I'm lucky. I'm sorry to hear that. You were a worthy opponent. Volkov's eyes moved to Maya. And who is this? Lieutenant Commander Maya Torres, U.S. Navy SEAL. Mitchell's voice carried pride. One of the finest operators I've ever had the honor to command. Volkov studied Maya the way a jeweler studies a diamond, assessing quality, looking for flaws. She met his gaze without flinching. Torres, he said, that name is familiar. My brother was Lieutenant Marco Torres. He died 2 years ago in Afghanistan on an operation compromised by intelligence that your associate Victor Crane sold to hostile forces. Something flickered behind Volkov's eyes. Not guilt. Men like him had moved past guilt long ago, but recognition, understanding. I see. He leaned back. So this is personal. This is professional, Mitchell said. But yes, it's also personal. The men who died deserve justice, and you're going to help us deliver it. Am I? Volkov smiled. It wasn't a warm smile. And why would I do that? Maya placed the USB drive on the table. Because we already have everything. 6 years of evidence, every transaction, every buyer, every shipment, financial records, communications, classified documents, all of it. Volkov didn't touch the drive. He looked at it the way someone looks at a venomous snake, with respect and caution, and the understanding that one wrong move means death. Where did you get this? Sarah Stark, the senator's daughter. She's been copying Crane's files for 6 months. Mitchell's voice was calm. She's currently in protective custody, ready to testify, ready to expose everything. If you have all this, Volkov said slowly, why do you need me? Because we want everyone, not just Crane, not just Stark, everyone, every buyer, every supplier, every corrupt official who profited from American blood. Mitchell leaned forward. And you know them all. You've done business with them all. Your testimony connects the entire network. And what do I get in exchange for this testimony? Freedom. Maya's voice was hard. Full immunity from prosecution. New identity. New documentation. Witness protection anywhere in the world you choose. You disappear with your wealth intact. Live out your remaining years in peace. And if I refuse, then we present this evidence without you. The case is still strong enough to bring down Crane and Stark, but you'll go down with them. You'll spend whatever time you have left in a supermax prison, isolated, alone, dying by inches in a concrete box. Mitchell's voice stayed level. Or you cooperate, testify, disappear, choose. Volkov was quiet for a long time. He poured vodka, drank, poured again. You're asking me to betray a client, he said finally. I'm offering you survival, Mitchell replied. Victor Crane is finished. His operation is compromised. His arrest is inevitable. The only question is whether you go down with him or whether you step away before the walls collapse. How do I know you can deliver immunity? Because I've spent 40 years building relationships with people who matter. JAG officers, federal prosecutors, officials who remember what honor means and trust my word. Mitchell pulled out a document, signed by 3 federal judges, guaranteeing immunity in exchange for complete testimony. It's real, it's binding, and it's your only way out. Volkov took the document, read it. His face showed nothing. Then he smiled. Not the cold smile from before, something closer to genuine amusement. You know what I've always respected about Americans? You believe in redemption, in second chances, in the idea that even bad men can choose to do good things. He set the document down. Russians don't believe that. We believe people are what they are, that choices are illusions, that fate is inevitable. Which are you? Maya asked. Russian or redeemed? Volkov looked at her, really looked, and something in his expression shifted. Your brother, Marco Torres. He paused. I didn't know the specifics. Crane told me the intelligence was being used for strategic purposes, balance of power, geopolitical chess. He never mentioned individual soldiers, never used names. Now you know. Now I know. Volkov poured another vodka, didn't drink this time. In Berlin, 1987, Colonel Mitchell tried to kill me. He had me in his sights. Clear shot, easy kill, but he hesitated. Do you know why? Mitchell said nothing. Because there was a child nearby, a girl, maybe 8 years old, playing in the street behind me. If he'd taken the shot, If he'd missed by even centimeters, he might have hit her. So he let me go. He chose the child's safety over his mission. Volkov looked at Mitchell. That's honor. That's the difference between soldiers and killers. The point? Mitchell's voice was tight. The point is, I've spent 50 years in this business. I've worked with monsters, true monsters. Men who would kill that child just to prove they could. Men who see human life as nothing but currency to be spent. Volkov's hands were steady now. Crane is one of those men. He talks about strategy and necessity and the greater good. But I've listened to him. I've heard the emptiness in his voice. He doesn't care about balance of power or geopolitics. He cares about money and the thrill of getting away with it. So you'll testify. I'll do more than testify. Volkov reached into his jacket. Maya's hand moved toward her weapon. He noticed, smiled, slowly pulled out a folder. I'll give you everything. Not just what I know about Crane. Everything. 50 years of contacts, operations, deals, every corrupt official I've ever worked with, every politician who took money to look the other way, every general who sold out his own troops. Why? Because I'm 67 years old. I've made my money. I've lived my life, and at the end, I'd like to believe I did at least one honorable thing. Volkov opened the folder. Inside were documents, photographs, names Maya recognized, senators, cabinet members, military officers, foreign leaders. This is my insurance, my guarantee that powerful men wouldn't kill me. But it's also my burden, proof of every compromise I've ever made. He slid the folder across the table. Take it, use it, burn down everyone who profits from men like your brother dying in deserts on the other side of the world. And when it's done, when they're all in prison, let me disappear. Let me have whatever time I have left in peace. Mitchell took the folder, opened it. His face went pale. My God, he breathed. This is everyone. This goes all the way to the top, yes. Volkov finished his vodka. Welcome to how the world really works, Colonel. You spent 40 years fighting for honor and duty and all the beautiful lies that make soldiers willing to die. Now you get to see what they were really dying for. Not freedom, not democracy, money, power, the same things men have killed for since we climbed down from trees. Maya felt something cold spreading through her chest. How many? How many what? How many soldiers died because of the people in that folder? Thousands. Over 50 years, maybe more. Volkov's voice was matter-of-fact. I didn't kill them myself. I just sold the information that made it possible. Does that make me less guilty? No. Does it make me realistic about my crimes? Yes. And you're okay with that? No. But I'm old enough to know that being okay with it doesn't matter. What matters is choosing, right now, to stop, to help bring down the system I helped build, to leave something better than what I found. Volkov stood up. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have arrangements to make. When do you need me to testify? 1 week. Mitchell was still staring at the folder. We need time to verify this information, build the case properly, make sure it can't be dismissed or buried. 1 week. I'll be in touch with location and time. Volkov looked at Maya. Your brother was a hero. Make sure the people who caused his death know that before they go to prison. Make sure they understand exactly what they destroyed. He walked out of the restaurant. Mitchell and Maya sat in silence. This changes everything, Mitchell finally said. This isn't just about Crane and Stark anymore. This is about the entire system. Decades of corruption. Hundreds of people. Can we even prosecute all of them? We have to try. Mitchell closed the folder. Marco died for something. Maybe he died for this, for the chance to expose all of it, to finally hold people accountable. Or maybe he just died. Maya's voice was hollow. Maybe there's no grand purpose, no greater meaning. Maybe he's just gone, and we're trying to make it mean something so we can live with the fact that we survived, and he didn't. Mitchell looked at her, really looked. You're right, he said. Maybe there's no grand purpose. Maybe meaning is something we create, not something we discover. But that doesn't make it less real. That doesn't make it less important. He touched Marco's name on the photograph on the wall. Your brother believed in duty, in service, in protecting people who couldn't protect themselves. And the best way we can honor that belief is by finishing what he started, by making sure the men who betrayed everything he fought for face justice. Maya pulled out the $2 bills, looked at them. Senator Stark gave me these because he thought I was worthless, she said. Because he thought I didn't matter. Because people like me are invisible to people like him. And tomorrow, Mitchell said, we're going to show him exactly how wrong he was. They drove back to Arlington in silence. Sarah was waiting at the safe house. She'd been watching the news, seen the reports about Elena Chen's sister, about other witnesses connected to Crane's operation dying in accidents that weren't accidents. He's cleaning up, she said. Her voice was shaking. Everyone who might know something, everyone who might testify, he's eliminating them. Not everyone, Mitchell said. He held up Volkov's folder. We just recruited the most important witness in this entire case. And in 1 week, we bring down not just Crane, not just your father, but everyone connected to them. Sarah looked at the folder, at the names visible on the top page. Her face went white. These are cabinet members, senators, generals, 50 years of corruption. Mitchell set the folder on the table. And your testimony, combined with this evidence, brings down all of them. They'll kill us. Sarah's voice was barely a whisper. People with this much power, this much to lose, they'll kill all of us before they let this go public. They'll try, Maya said, which is why we have 7 days to build an airtight case and get it into the hands of people who can't be bought or threatened. People who will prosecute no matter what. And if we can't, then we don't get a second chance. Mitchell's face was grim. Then everyone your father destroyed, everyone Crane sold out, everyone who died because of the people in this folder, they all died for nothing. And the system that killed them continues destroying more people until someone else is brave enough to stop it. Sarah looked at all of them. Then she straightened her shoulders, lifted her chin. Okay, she said, tell me what I need to do. The call came at 3 in the morning. Maya was asleep in Mitchell's guest room when her encrypted phone vibrated. She answered before the second buzz, years of training making her instantly alert. Ghost, this is Warden. Admiral Peterson's voice was tight with controlled urgency. We have a problem. Margaret Stark was taken 20 minutes ago. Black van, 3 men, professional extraction. Virginia plates traced to a shell company connected to Crane's network. Maya was on her feet, pulling on clothes. Where? Heading south on Route 40. We have satellite tracking, but they're moving fast. Looks like they're headed for a secondary location. Peterson paused. Mitchell asked me to have assets in place. I have a quick reaction force 15 minutes out. But Maya, I know, if QRF moves in, Crane knows we're onto him. The investigation gets burned. We lose our chance at taking down everyone in Volkov's folder. That's the calculation. One woman's life versus bringing down 50 years of corruption. I need you to make the call. Maya looked at the $2 bills on the dresser, thought about Sarah downstairs, about Isabella drawing pictures of her father as a superhero, about Marco bleeding out in Afghan sand while politicians counted poll numbers. Send the QRF, she said. We don't sacrifice civilians to catch criminals. That's the line that separates us from them. Copy. Peterson's voice carried relief and respect in equal measure. QRF is moving. ETA 12 minutes. Maya ended the call and went downstairs. Mitchell was already awake, standing in the kitchen with coffee that he wasn't drinking. His face was gray with pain and exhaustion. You heard, she said. I heard. Mitchell set down the cup. Crane is accelerating. He knows we met with Volkov, knows his operation is compromised. He's moving to eliminate anyone who can testify against him. Margaret isn't a witness. She doesn't know anything. She's leverage. If we want Sarah to stay quiet, to refuse to testify, threatening her mother is the most direct approach. Mitchell pulled out his phone. But Crane doesn't know we have QRF assets in position. He thinks he has hours before anyone realizes Margaret is missing. How long until QRF intercepts? 10 minutes now. They'll stop the van, extract Margaret, take the kidnapping team into custody. But the moment that happens, Crane knows his timeline just collapsed. He'll run or he'll make a desperate move. Or both, Maya said. Or both. Sarah appeared in the doorway. She was wearing one of Maya's sweatshirts, too large for her frame. Her face was pale, but her eyes were clear. It's my mother, isn't it? He took my mother. QRF is getting her back right now. Mitchell's voice was gentle but firm. She'll be safe within minutes. And then what? Sarah's hands were shaking. He took her because of me. Because I found those files. Because I gave you that USB drive. This is my fault. This is Crane's fault. Maya stepped forward. He made the choice to sell intelligence that killed 47 soldiers. He made the choice to help your father arrange a kidnapping. He made the choice to threaten witnesses and eliminate anyone who got in his way. You didn't make him do any of that. You just refused to stay silent about it. But my mother is alive because we had people in place. Because we anticipated this move. Because we were prepared. Maya's voice was hard. And in 10 minutes she'll be free. And Crane will know that his leverage just evaporated and his time just ran out. Mitchell's phone buzzed. He looked at the screen. His face showed relief so profound it aged him 10 years in reverse. QRF has Margaret. Blue van stopped. 3 hostiles in custody. She's shaken but unharmed. They're bringing her here. Sarah collapsed into a chair, started crying. Not the quiet tears of someone trying to maintain composure. Deep sobs that came from a place beyond words. Maya knelt beside her, put a hand on her shoulder, let her cry. When the tears finally slowed, Sarah looked up. Her face was blotchy and red, but something had changed behind her eyes. Something had hardened. I want to testify now, she said. Not in a week, now, today, before he can hurt anyone else, before he can run or destroy evidence or make this go away. We need time to build the case properly, Mitchell said, to coordinate with federal prosecutors, to make sure it can't be dismissed on procedural grounds. How much time? 3 days, maybe 4. We have Volkov's testimony scheduled. We have the USB drive being analyzed by DOJ experts. We have Margaret's kidnapping on record. Mitchell pulled out a legal pad covered in his handwriting. We're building something that can't be torn down, but it takes time. People are dying while we build your perfect case. Sarah's voice was sharp. Elena Chen, her sister. How many more before we act? Every day we wait makes the case stronger. Every piece of evidence we verify makes it harder for their lawyers to create reasonable doubt. Mitchell met her eyes. I understand your anger. I share it. But we do this right or we don't do it at all. Because if we move too fast, if we give them any opening to dismiss the charges or claim procedural violations, then everyone we're trying to bring down walks free. And your mother's kidnapping, Marco's death, all of it means nothing. Sarah was quiet. Then she nodded. 3 days, but not 4. 3 days and then I testify, even if you're not ready. Deal. Margaret Stark arrived 30 minutes later. Navy security brought her in an unmarked vehicle, wrapped in a blanket despite the warm night. She looked 10 years older than she had at the gala. Her hair was disheveled, her makeup smeared, but her spine was straight and her eyes were clear. Sarah ran to her. They held each other without speaking. Mrs. Stark, Mitchell said quietly, I'm Colonel James Mitchell. I'm sorry we couldn't prevent your kidnapping, but I'm glad we could get you back safely. Margaret looked at him. Really looked. The kind of look that came from 2 decades of marriage to a politician. and learning to see through lies instantly. "You're the one who's been investigating my husband," she said. It wasn't a question. "Yes, ma'am." "Good." Her voice was steady, firm, because someone needs to. And clearly it won't be the FBI or the Justice Department or anyone else whose career depends on staying in Richard's good graces. "You're not surprised. I've been married to him for 23 years, Colonel. I know what he's capable of. I've seen the phone calls he takes at 2 in the morning, the meetings he won't explain, the way he looks at people like they're chess pieces to be moved or removed as needed." She sat down carefully. "I didn't know the specifics, didn't know about Afghanistan or the intelligence sales or any of the details, but I knew he was capable of it. And you stayed with him." "I stayed because leaving felt like admitting defeat, like acknowledging that I'd wasted 23 years on a man who saw power as more important than people." Margaret looked at her daughter. "And I stayed because divorce would hurt Sarah's reputation, would make her life harder, would mark her as the daughter of a broken home in circles where that still matters." "It doesn't matter anymore," Sarah said quietly. "Not compared to the truth." "No, it doesn't." Margaret took her daughter's hand. "So I'm filing for divorce, first thing Monday morning, and I'm starting a foundation for families of fallen soldiers, for the wives and children left behind when men like my husband treat American lives as acceptable casualties in their political games." Mitchell nodded slowly. "That's honorable, ma'am. It's inadequate, but it's something." Margaret's eyes were wet, but her voice stayed controlled. "I can't bring back the men my husband destroyed, can't undo the damage he's caused, but I can spend whatever wealth and influence I have left trying to help the people he hurt." The next 3 days were a masterclass in building an airtight federal case. Mitchell coordinated with JAG officers he'd served with, federal prosecutors who remembered what honor meant, analysts who could verify every document in Volkov's folder and Sarah's USB drive. Maya ran security, made sure everyone involved stayed protected, coordinated with Admiral Peterson's assets, built multiple backup plans for every possible contingency. Sarah prepared her testimony, went through every file again, made sure she could explain every transaction, every communication, every piece of evidence in language that judges and juries would understand. Volkov disappeared into witness protection, but he left behind a notarized deposition, 20 hours of testimony recorded on video. Every name, every deal, every corrupt transaction from 50 years in the arms trade. On the second day, Mitchell collapsed again. Maya found him in the study. He'd been going through Volkov's documents, cross-referencing names with military casualties, building the connection between intelligence sales and American deaths, proving that every dollar Crane made came at the cost of blood. He was on the floor, unconscious. His skin was the color of old snow. This time Maya did call an ambulance. The EMTs worked fast, got him stabilized, loaded him onto a stretcher. One of them looked at Maya with a kind of professional sympathy that meant bad news. "He needs to be in a hospital," the EMT said. "Hospice care, not running operations from his basement. He's trying to finish something important. We're all trying to finish something." The EMT adjusted the IV. "Difference is most of us will be alive next month to see how it turns out." They took Mitchell to Arlington Memorial. Maya rode with him, held his hand while he was unconscious, watched the monitors tracking his failing vitals. He woke up in the emergency room, looked around with eyes that took several seconds to focus. "What day is it?" His voice was rough, weak. "Day 2. Maya squeezed his hand. "We have one more day until Sarah testifies, until we bring down everyone in that folder. I need to be there. You need to rest. Let the doctors. The doctors can't do anything for me that changes the outcome." Mitchell tried to sit up, failed. "But I can still make sure Sarah's testimony gets heard, can still coordinate with the prosecutors, can still finish the mission." "Colonel, that's an order, Lieutenant Commander." Mitchell's voice gained strength, his command voice, the one that had sent men into combat zones for 40 years, and made them believe they could do impossible things. Get me out of this hospital. Get me back to the house. We have work to finish. Maya looked at him, this dying old man who should be with his daughter and grandchildren, who should be spending his last days in peace instead of fighting one final battle against corruption so deep it had roots in 50 years of American foreign policy. She called Admiral Peterson. Warden, I need a medical evac. Mitchell wants to finish this at home. Peterson was quiet for 3 seconds, then, is that what he wants or what you want? It's what he needs. And after everything he's done, after 40 years of service, I think he's earned the right to die the way he chooses. Understood. I'll have a medical team at his house within the hour. Whatever he needs to make it through the next 2 days. Thank you, sir. Maya. Peterson's voice carried something she'd never heard from him before. Emotion. Raw and unfiltered. What you and Mitchell are doing, what you're about to expose, it's going to shake the foundations of the entire defense establishment. There will be consequences. Political, professional. People will come after you both. Let them come. The medical team set up equipment in Mitchell's study, turned it into a command center and hospice room combined. Monitors tracking his vitals, morphine drip for the pain, oxygen when his breathing got too shallow. But Mitchell refused to lie down. He sat in his chair, papers spread across the desk, phone pressed to his ear, coordinating with prosecutors, making sure every detail was perfect. On the morning of the 3rd day, Sarah's testimony was scheduled for 10 a.m. at the federal courthouse downtown. Grand jury proceedings, closed to the public, but every word would be recorded. Every piece of evidence entered into official record. Maya helped Mitchell get dressed. Suit, tie, the uniform of a man going into battle one last time. I'm not sure I can walk, he admitted. His voice was barely a whisper. Then I'll carry you. Mitchell smiled. Marco said the same thing. In Afghanistan, when I wanted to stay behind with the wounded, he told me if I didn't move, he'd carry me out himself. He would have. I know. That's why I moved. Mitchell's eyes were distant. Couldn't let him risk himself for me. Couldn't let any of them see their commanding officer being carried to safety. Would have broken something. Trust, respect, the belief that leaders are supposed to be stronger than everyone else. Leaders are supposed to get their people home safe. Maya's voice was hard. You did that for 20 years. You brought home dozens of operators who should have died, Marco included. You don't get to guilt yourself about surviving. I don't feel guilty about surviving. I feel guilty about the ones I didn't bring home. About Marco. About sending him into that compound on intelligence I should have questioned. Mitchell took a shaky breath. But today that guilt ends. Today I make it right. Today everyone who caused his death answers for it. They arrived at the courthouse at 9:30. Sarah and Margaret were already there. Sarah wore a navy suit, conservative, professional, the armor of someone about to go to war in a courtroom instead of a battlefield. Mitchell looked at her with something like paternal pride. Remember what we practiced, he said. Answer the questions directly. Don't elaborate unless asked. Let the evidence speak for itself. And when they ask about your father, when they ask about Afghanistan, tell the truth, all of it, no matter how much it hurts. I will. Sarah's voice was steady. For Marco, for the 47 others, for everyone my family destroyed. The grand jury convened at 10 exactly. Maya and Mitchell watched from an observation room. Audio and video feeds showing Sarah taking her oath, promising to tell the truth, beginning to speak.
My name is Sarah Catherine Stark. I am 19 years old. I am the daughter of Senator Richard Stark, chairman of the Intelligence Committee, and I am here to tell you the truth about what my father and his advisor have done.
For 6 hours, Sarah testified. She walked the prosecutors through the files she'd found on Crane's computer, the weapons deals, the intelligence sales, the foreign buyers who'd paid millions for American secrets that directly led to combat deaths. She described Afghanistan, how her father had arranged her kidnapping as a publicity stunt, how the warlord had betrayed him, how real soldiers had come to save her, how 3 of them had died. She named names: Lieutenant Marco Torres, Sergeant Davis Jackson, Corporal James Miller. 3 men with families and futures who died because a senator wanted better television coverage. She played audio recordings: Stark's voice arranging the kidnapping, Crane's voice helping to cover it up, conversations between them discussing how to spin the disaster when it went wrong. She presented financial documents, bank accounts in the Cayman Islands, cryptocurrency wallets, shell companies designed to hide money trails. Every dollar traced back to intelligence that Crane had sold. She connected dots that prosecutors had been trying to connect for years, proved that Crane's intelligence leaks weren't isolated incidents. They were part of a systematic operation. 6 years of selling American secrets to anyone willing to pay. When she finished, the room was silent. The lead prosecutor stood slowly. "Miss Stark, you understand the gravity of what you're testifying to?" "Yes, sir." "You're stating that your father, a sitting United States Senator, the chairman of the Intelligence Committee, arranged your kidnapping in Afghanistan for political gain?" "Yes, sir." "And that this arrangement directly resulted in the deaths of 3 American soldiers?" "Yes, sir." Sarah's voice didn't waver, not once. Lieutenant Marco Torres, 28 years old, married, 1 daughter, Isabella, who was 2 when he died. Sergeant Davis Jackson, 31, twin sons. Corporal James Miller, 24, engaged to be married. "How do you know these details?" "Because I looked them up. Because I've spent 2 years knowing that my father's ambition killed them. Because their families deserve to know the truth." Sarah looked directly at the camera recording her testimony. "And because if I don't speak now, if I stay silent to protect my father, then I'm complicit. Then I'm part of the system that treats American soldiers as acceptable casualties." The prosecutor nodded. "We have no further questions at this time." In the observation room, Mitchell closed his eyes. Tears ran down his face. Silent, unashamed. "She did it," he whispered. "She told the truth even though it destroys her own family. That's honor. That's real courage." Maya's phone buzzed. Text from Admiral Peterson. "Arrest warrants being issued now. FBI moving on Stark and Crane simultaneously. 47 additional warrants for individuals in Volkov's folder. This is happening." Mitchell opened his eyes, looked at Maya. "Turn on the news." Maya pulled out her laptop, opened a news stream. Every major network carried the same footage. Senator Richard Stark being led from the Senate office building in handcuffs, his face twisted with rage and terror and the sudden understanding that his power had just evaporated. Victor Crane arrested at his home, surrounded by FBI tactical teams, being read his rights while cameras from every network captured the moment. Dozens of others, generals, cabinet members, defense contractors, foreign operatives, a cascade of arrests across 6 states, the largest coordinated operation against government corruption in American history. Mitchell watched in silence. His breathing was getting shallow. The oxygen wasn't helping anymore. "Maya," he said quietly, "I need to call my daughter." She handed him the phone. The conversation was short, private. Maya stepped out of the room to give him privacy. When she came back 5 minutes later, Mitchell's face was peaceful, resigned. "I told her I love her," he said. "Told her I'm proud of her. Told her I'm sorry I wasn't there more. That I chose duty over family too many times." "What did she say?" "That she understands. That she loves me. That she'll see me soon." Mitchell's smile was sad. "We both know what soon means. But it was kind of her to pretend otherwise." "Colonel, I'm ready, Maya. I've made my peace, finished my mission. Marco's death means something now. The 47 others, all of them. Their families will know the truth. The men responsible will answer for it." Mitchell took her hand. His grip was weak but steady. Promise me something. Anything. Take care of Isabella. Make sure she knows her father was a hero. Make sure she understands that Marco died protecting someone who needed protecting. That's what warriors do. That's the legacy. I promise. Mitchell closed his eyes. The monitors tracking his vitals showed everything failing at once. Heart rate dropping, blood pressure crashing, oxygen saturation plummeting. Maya held his hand, stayed with him, honored the man who trained her brother, who'd spent his last months bringing down the corruption that had killed Marco, who'd chosen to die fighting rather than fade away in hospice. He took 3 more breaths. Then he was gone. Maya sat there for 10 minutes, holding the hand of a dead man, thinking about Marco, about all the men who'd served under Mitchell's command, about the legacy of honor and duty and sacrifice that men like them built and maintained, even when the system they served was rotting from the inside. Then she pulled out her phone, called Admiral Peterson. "Warden, Colonel Mitchell just died." Peterson was quiet. Then, "He finished his mission first." "Yes, sir, he finished his mission. I'll make arrangements. Full military honors at Arlington. He's earned it." "Yes, sir, he has." The funeral was 4 days later. Arlington National Cemetery, full military honors. A flag-draped coffin, sailors in dress uniforms, a 3-volley salute that echoed across the hillside. Mitchell's daughter spoke first, talked about a father she'd barely known, a man who'd been gone more than he was home, who'd missed birthdays and graduations and holidays, but who'd written letters from every deployment, who'd called whenever he could, who'd loved his family even though duty kept him away. Then Admiral Peterson spoke about 40 years of service, about operations that would never appear in any official record, about a man who trained 2 generations of SEALs and taught them that honor wasn't just a word, but a way of living. Then Maya spoke. She told the truth, about how Mitchell had spent his last months investigating corruption, about how he'd built the case that brought down Senator Stark and Victor Crane and 47 others, about how he died the way he'd lived, fighting, refusing to quit, finishing his mission even when his body was failing. She talked about Marco, about how Mitchell had commanded the Afghanistan operation, about how he'd carried the guilt of Marco's death for 2 years, about how he'd finally made it right. When the ceremony ended, when the flag was folded and presented to Mitchell's daughter, when the last note of taps faded across the cemetery, Maya walked alone through the rows of white headstones. She found Marco's grave, knelt beside it, pulled out the $2 bills. "I finished it," she said quietly. "Mitchell and me. We brought down everyone responsible. Stark's going to prison for life. Crane too. 47 others, all of them." She set the bills on the headstone, let them blow away in the wind, watch them tumble across the grass. They don't matter anymore. Because you mattered. Your life mattered. Your sacrifice mattered. And everyone who caused your death is going to spend the rest of their lives paying for it. She stood, saluted, held it for 10 seconds. Then she walked away. 6 months later, Maya stood in a courtroom in Washington, D.C. The trial of United States versus Richard Stark had been going for 3 weeks. Every network covered it. Every newspaper ran daily updates. The testimony had exposed corruption so deep that Congress had launched multiple investigations. Cabinet members had resigned. Military officers had been court-martialed. The entire defense establishment was being restructured. Today was Maya's turn to testify. She wore her dress uniform, navy blue, ribbons and medals from 14 years of operations. The Navy Cross she'd received for the Afghanistan extraction, the Silver Star from Syria, the Bronze Stars from Yemen and Somalia. She took the stand, was sworn in, looked directly at Richard Stark sitting at the defense table. He looked smaller than he had at the gala, diminished. His expensive suit couldn't hide the fact that he was a 72-year-old man facing life in prison. "Lieutenant Commander Torres," the prosecutor began, "please tell the court about your brother, Lieutenant Marco Torres." Maya took a breath, let it out slowly. My brother was 28 years old. He was the team leader for the Afghanistan operation that extracted Sarah Stark. He was married to Elena Torres. He had a daughter, Isabella, who was 2 years old when he deployed. And what happened to Lieutenant Torres during that extraction? He was killed in action, 4 gunshot wounds. He died, providing covering fire so the rest of the team could evacuate with the rescued civilian. He died 60 seconds before the medevac helicopter arrived. The courtroom was silent. "And when did you learn the truth about that operation?" the prosecutor asked. "2 years later, when Sarah Stark showed me evidence that her father had arranged her own kidnapping as a publicity stunt, that the intelligence was deliberately compromised, that my brother died because Senator Stark wanted better poll numbers going into a presidential campaign." Objection. Stark's lawyer stood. Speculation and hearsay. Overruled. The judge looked at the lawyer with something close to contempt. The documentary evidence supporting this testimony has already been admitted. Continue, Commander Torres. Maya looked at Stark, made sure he was watching, made sure he couldn't look away. "My brother died believing he was saving an innocent American civilian from terrorists. He died believing his sacrifice meant something. He died believing that his country honored the trust he placed in his leadership." She paused. "He died not knowing that his own government had betrayed him, that a senator had arranged the entire situation, that his death was considered acceptable collateral damage in a political campaign." Stark's face was white. The prosecutor pulled out a photograph. "This is your niece, Isabella Torres. How old is she now?" 6 years old. Maya's voice stayed controlled. "She's in first grade. She draws pictures of her father. She remembers him as a hero, because he was a hero. He did exactly what warriors are supposed to do. He protected someone who needed protecting. He made sure his team came home safe. He gave his life for duty and honor and all the things we tell soldiers matter." "And what would you say to Senator Stark," the prosecutor asked, "if you could say anything you wanted?" Maya looked directly at him. "You threw $2 at my face. You told me I was worthless, that I didn't belong in the same room as respectable people." She pulled the $2 bills from her pocket. New ones. Crisp. She'd replaced the originals. "But I kept these. As a reminder." "A reminder of what?" "That your opinion doesn't define me. That your power doesn't protect you. That respect isn't given, it's earned. And that eventually, always, people who treat others as worthless discover their own irrelevance." The prosecutor nodded. No further questions. Stark's lawyer tried to cross-examine, tried to attack Maya's credibility, tried to suggest she was biased, emotional, unreliable. Maya answered every question calmly, professionally, let the evidence speak for itself. When she stepped down from the stand, she walked past Stark's table. He was staring at his hands, broken, defeated. She didn't feel satisfaction, didn't feel vindicated, just felt tired and sad, and grateful that Mitchell had lived long enough to see this moment coming, even if he hadn't survived to see it arrive. The trial concluded 2 weeks later. The jury deliberated for 6 hours. Guilty on all 23 counts. Crane's trial followed. Same result, life without parole. The other 47 defendants either pled guilty or were convicted. The largest mass prosecution of government corruption in American history. Margaret Stark's foundation grew, started with scholarships for children of fallen soldiers, expanded to support programs, counseling, job training, everything families needed when the person who held them together was gone. Sarah enrolled in college, Georgetown, international relations. She wanted to understand the system that had destroyed her family, wanted to fix it, or at least make sure the next generation understood what was broken and needed repair. 1 year after Mitchell's funeral, Maya visited Elena and Isabella. The house looked the same. Marco's photographs still on the walls, his dress uniform still in the closet. The things that marked his presence even in his absence. Isabella was 7 now, taller, more confident. She wore a karate gi, yellow belt. Aunt Maya! She ran and hugged with the unself-conscious enthusiasm that only children possess. Mom said you were coming. I promised I would. Maya knelt down. And I always keep my promises. Like Daddy? Like your daddy. They sat together in the living room. Elena made coffee. Isabella showed Maya her drawings, her homework, her karate certificates. Then Maya pulled out a box, set it on the table. Isabella, this belonged to your father. Now it belongs to you. Inside was Marco's Medal of Honor, the gold star, the pale blue ribbon, the inscription, for extraordinary heroism. Isabella touched it gently, like it was made of glass in dreams. Colonel Mitchell wanted you to have this, Maya said. He wanted you to know that your father was the bravest man he ever commanded, that Marco did exactly what heroes do. He protected people who needed protecting. He made sure his team came home safe. He gave everything for duty and honor and the belief that some things are worth dying for. Isabella held the medal, tears running down her face. Was Daddy scared? She asked. Yes. Maya's voice was soft. He was terrified, but he did his duty anyway. That's what makes someone brave. Not the absence of fear, the choice to act despite it. Isabella nodded. Set the medal back in the box carefully. Aunt Maya, can I tell you something? Anything. I'm going to be a soldier too, like Daddy, like you, like Colonel Mitchell. Isabella's voice was certain, the certainty that only comes from children who haven't learned doubt yet. I'm going to protect people, make sure bad people can't hurt them. Maya looked at Elena. Elena nodded slightly. Permission. Then I'll help you train, Maya said. When you're older, when you're ready, I'll teach you everything your father taught me, everything Colonel Mitchell taught him. The legacy doesn't end with us, Isabella. It continues, as long as there are people willing to stand up for what's right. That evening, Maya drove to the Oval Office. President Callahan had requested a meeting, private, no press, no staff beyond the Secret Service agents required by protocol. He stood when she entered, extended his hand. Commander Torres, thank you for coming. Mr. President. They sat. Callahan poured bourbon, handed her a glass. I've read the complete file, he said. Everything you and Colonel Mitchell did. The investigation, the evidence gathering, the coordination with federal prosecutors, bringing down the largest corruption network in modern American history. He raised his glass. That's extraordinary work. It was Mitchell's work. I just helped finish it. You did more than help. You risked your career, your freedom, your life, because you believed justice mattered more than protocol. Callahan took a sip. That's exactly the kind of person I need in the position I'm about to offer. Sir, Director of Special Operations Oversight, you'd report directly to me, full authority over all classified military operations, resources, influence, the ability to shape how this nation protects itself and how it protects the men and women who do the protecting. Maya was quiet, thought about Marco, about Mitchell, about Isabella wanting to be a soldier. I'm 23 years old, she finally said, and you've done more at 23 than most officers do in 40 years. You've proven you understand what's at stake, that you'll stand up to corruption even when it costs you everything, that you put mission and honor above personal advancement. Callahan leaned forward. Those operators deploying tonight to places we'll never name, doing things we'll never acknowledge, they deserve someone who understands what they face, someone who's been where they've been, someone who would never treat their sacrifices as expendable. Maya thought about the $2 bills, about Stark throwing them at her face, about proving that worthlessness was in the eye of the beholder and she'd never needed his validation. I accept, she said, on one condition. Name it. We established the Mitchell-Torres Protocol, pre-mission intelligence verification, two-source minimum. No operator goes into the field on questionable intel, ever. Done. Callahan extended his hand. Welcome to the most important job you'll ever hate. They shook. 3 years later, Maya stood before a packed auditorium at the Naval Academy. The graduating class sat in perfect rows, white uniforms gleaming, young faces turned toward her with the intensity that comes from knowing your life is about to change forever. She'd been asked to deliver the commencement address, the youngest person ever given the honor, the first woman. She walked to the podium, looked out at 400 future officers, pulled out $2 bills, held them up. 3 years ago, a senator threw these at my face. He called me worthless, told me I didn't belong among respectable people. The bills were framed now, preserved behind glass, but the memory was as fresh as the moment it happened. The audience was silent. I kept them, not as proof of insult, as proof of something else entirely. Maya set the frame on the podium. Proof that respect isn't given, it's earned. That power without honor is just noise. That eventually, always, people who dismiss others discover their own irrelevance. She told them about Marco, about Mitchell, about the investigation that brought down 50 years of corruption, about choosing duty over safety and justice over protocol and honor over advancement. You will face people like Senator Stark throughout your careers, she said. People who look at you and see your age or your gender or your background, everything except your capabilities. People who will dismiss you before you've spoken. People who will tell you that you don't deserve to be in the room. Her voice strengthened. Let them. Let them underestimate you. Let them dismiss you. Because while they're busy congratulating themselves on their superiority, you'll be doing the actual work, making the actual difference, achieving the actual victories that matter. She held up the framed bills. Senator Stark is in federal prison. His network is destroyed. His legacy is a cautionary tale about what happens when power becomes more important than people. She paused. And I'm standing here before the next generation of American warriors, telling you that the quiet ones always win in the end. The applause was deafening. That evening, Maya stood alone on the beach at Coronado. The sun was setting over the Pacific. Behind her, the lights of the Naval Special Warfare Center glowed against the gathering darkness. The place where she'd been forged, where Marco had been forged, where Mitchell had trained 2 generations of operators. She held 3 things in her hands: the $2 bills in their frame, Marco's Medal of Honor, Mitchell's retirement trident given to her in his will. Her phone buzzed. Text from Elena with a photo attached. Isabella in a martial arts tournament, black belt now, 10 years old, standing on a podium holding a first-place trophy. The caption read, "She says she's training to be like Aunt Maya." Maya smiled, typed back, "Tell her to train like her daddy, be honorable like Colonel Mitchell. The rest will follow." She looked out at the ocean. Somewhere beyond that horizon, operators were deployed tonight, running missions in places the world would never hear about, saving lives that would never make the news, sacrificing everything for people who would never know their names. She had been one of them. Now she was their protector. And in her pocket, always, she carried 2 crumpled dollar bills that had once been thrown at her face to prove she was worthless. They hadn't proven that at all. They'd proven that Senator Richard Stark was a man who measured value in dollars and dismissed anyone who didn't fit his definition of importance. And 3 years later, he was in prison. His empire was destroyed. His name was synonymous with corruption and betrayal. While Maya Torres was the youngest director of Special Operations Oversight in American history, the woman who'd exposed 50 years of corruption, the operator who'd proven that honor mattered more than power and justice mattered more than protocol. Her phone buzzed again. Another message from Isabella. "When I grow up, I want to be just like you and Daddy." Maya looked at the message for a long time. Then she typed back slowly. "Your daddy was the bravest man I ever knew. Colonel Mitchell was the most honorable. Be like them. The world needs more people who understand that strength isn't about power. It's about what you're willing to sacrifice for people who can't protect themselves. She sent the message, pocketed the phone, looked out at the darkening sky, and somewhere in the distance, she could almost hear Mitchell's voice from one of their last conversations. The legacy we leave isn't in medals or promotions. It's in the people we trained, the lives we saved, the standards we upheld. Marco Torres left a legacy. So will you, Maya. So will you. The sun disappeared below the horizon. The stars came out one by one, and Maya Torres stood on the beach where her brother had trained, where Mitchell had taught him, where the legacy of honor and duty and sacrifice continued because there were still people willing to stand up when others stayed silent, people willing to finish what others started, people willing to prove that $2 couldn't measure a human soul, and that in the end, always, justice found a way.